Hi, welcome to our Last Wishes chat room. My name's Jean Francis and I'm founder of Last Wishes Live Your Legacy. Today we're looking at funeral customs in different communities. It's a great pleasure to introduce you to Helen and Malaika. We got to know one another while we were training to become One Spirit Interfaith ministers, and we were ordained in 2012. I'll leave Malaika to introduce herself. Malaika?
Thank you. Welcome, Helen and Jean. My name's Reverend Malaika. I'm an interfaith minister in Manchester, and I'm also a peace ambassador and a trustee or a member for several charities here as well. My interests are interfaith, Black Lives Matter, mental health and suicide, and the importance of celebrating people from different faiths and cultures as well. So my parents came here, my grandparents came here from in the Windrush in the 1950s from the Caribbean. And so I was raised in a very strong Caribbean tradition, and we've got a huge Caribbean community here in Manchester. And when we have our funerals, we do it a tad different to other cultures. So funerals are really big to us. It's an all-day sing and dance type of event. We're more there to celebrate the life. We have certain traditions that we follow. If someone passes away, we usually gather at that person's house every night and day um, until we bury our loved ones. Members of the community will provide food and drink. The elder generations will play dominoes, and this will go on until the actual day of the funeral. It's a very supportive and celebratory environment, and we're there to mourn with the family and to see that if they've got any needs, that we're able to support them. We don't have an invitation list to our funerals. We believe it's open access. They're very large, they're huge, and if I know your parents, for example, but I've only heard about them, but I don't know them, I will come to help you bury your family and friends. It doesn't go by an invitation list. We're very open. They're very big events. We have some theories, and they're kind of old traditional theories around people who are pregnant shouldn't attend funerals. Although I imagine it might change with the next generations as they choose to change the way that they do things. Not necessarily does everyone wear black. Some people wear bright colours, and the actual service is very long. It's not structured for 30 minutes or an hour. We're usually at the service for a good 2 and 3 hours. We will have gospel singing, African drumming. People will deliver pieces of acts. As many as people as possible will say some words about the loved one who's been passed away. And then we will drive down to the cemetery, and we have a separate service there with music, and some people will have alcohol. And we have a tradition whereby we pour our alcohol into the ground and we acknowledge our ancestors, which is a ritual that we do quite often in our tradition. At the cemetery, there is lots of speeches, there's lots of gospel singing, there's lots of Bible readings or whatever readings you like. Some people even bring camping chairs to sit down, and it's quite another long 2-3 hours there. And we actually bury our own bodies. We get our wellies on and we get our shovels, and us as the community, we bury and throw the soil back into the ground, and we don't expect any professionals to help. We just do it ourselves. We then decorate the heap of soil with all the flowers that were given to the loved ones, and we kind of stay there for a little while. It's like a way of just not leaving them on their own too quickly, and seeing that we've sent them back home in the right traditional way. We then all head back to it's usually at community centres, and we usually are given a cup of Caribbean soup because it's usually cold at the cemetery. And then after that, we will have a three-course Caribbean meal. Our halls are decorated like weddings. They're not bland. We have balloons, and depending on what colours, schemes is there. In the Rastafarian faith, depending on what month you're born, you're allocated a particular colour, and when you die, everybody will wear that colour on that day. And even in the rest of their tradition, when it's your birthday, when you're celebrating anything, when I'm buying you anything, I'll give you the colour of your month. For example, I'm born in November, and I'm the tribe of Gad, and my colour's red, which I'm wearing today. So that's another part of a tradition in our cultures too. And it's a way of giving that person who's passed on good vibes, respecting them, and holding them in a colourful place that represents them. Our halls, as I said, are beautifully decorated. We do huge, like A4 books, order of services. They're really colourful and vibrant. They have lots of photographs and details of the person's life journey. And we will have I think the English call it a DJ, we call it a sound system, where it's really huge speaker boxes, and we'll be playing some really good, usually lots of reggae music, gospel music, and quite late on, and we'll all dance as well. And it's a place where maybe you didn't get to go to the church, but you can get to go to the after bit. And our children are all there running and playing around and playing games and stuff. And it's a very kind of connecting, in loving way to send our loved ones back home. Yeah. Oh, and in England, we tend to have our funerals on a Friday, so that we can invite our family and friends from out of town and even abroad, because we've then got the weekend to sort things out, or if they want to stay over. So Friday is our funeral day. Sometimes we might have 2 or 3 in the one day, which means we're going to be very, very busy that day. And we also, one other thing we do, we carry Tupperware boxes in our cars, because when we go to the funeral, if there's leftovers, we know we can bring it home, which is really good because we know we don't have to cook that day. So yes, so that's how funerals are very big to us. They're not a small event. We don't see it as such of a sad event. You will get tears, but it's, for us, it's a very huge milestone in our culture. And it's something that we see it as a big thing. We come together, and it's passionate and very cathartic to our hearts, our funerals. So I think at that point, I think I'll end. And thanks for listening, and good luck with the rest of the festival. And I'll pass you on to Helen.
First of all, can I just say thank you so much? That is absolutely fascinating, Malaika.
You're welcome.
And I know you've got to go to a meeting, but
yes,
thank you for making this interview possible.
It's my pleasure.
You're going to leave us with your lovely
now,
face.
and you can stay and continue. Yes. Peace be with you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Now over to Helen in Ireland.
Hello, my name is Reverend Helen Gruber, and if you'd like to know anything about me, the easiest thing is to just put my name into the search engine. Let's see benefits of having a unique name. I came with my family to live in Ireland 20 years ago, so learning about funeral customs here was like learning a second language, in as much as it helped me to analyse my previously held expectations as I updated my inner files. I had never seen a body after the soul had left until I came to Ireland. I mentioned this to a new friend over a cup of tea. Months later, she died, and at her wake, I found myself saying my goodbyes, not to the scary visage that I was expecting, but to someone who had found peace. Having become part of the local community here in the wilds of West Cork, we soon found that Catholic funerals are normally very large events, and it's not unusual for all the shops in the town to close as everyone attends, with loudspeakers placed outside the churches as crowds gather, unable to find spaces inside. But the day of the funeral is traditionally the culmination of a set of events leading up to this moment. Firstly came the cleansing of the house in common with any preparation of spiritual events. Then, if the deceased had passed elsewhere, they would be brought home to spend their last days in the house. This gave everyone the chance to offer their condolence, share reminiscences, and say their farewells. People would bring food, but there would always be food and refreshments provided. The departed loved one would be kept company the entire time. Next, there would be the rosary, either in the funeral home or in the house. Then the removal to the church for the last night, followed the next day by the church mass. This is where the crowds can turn up. After the church, the service moves to the grave for the burial by way of a procession, either driven or walked. In our nearest town, there is a cemetery on a hill overlooking the spectacular bay, and it's normal to have a walking procession a mile or so from the church, led by the coffin, accompanied by the mourners. A very beautiful thing, unless, of course, you're on the way to the airport or to officiate a wedding. After the burial, then it's off to the pub or hotel for that occasion for which Irish funerals have become legendary. We were here many years before learning how to leave relatively sober. As in common with all funeral rituals, the event will be more upbeat if the deceased had had a long and fruitful life, but less so in the tragedy of a life cut short. Either way, although there may be a lot of alcohol and food involved, there is still a sense of formality and support for the mourners. But times are changing. There is a gradual move towards cremation, with the first crematorium in Cork opened on an island close to the city just a few years ago. Also, as a population, especially in West Cork, becomes more cosmopolitan and people's attitudes generally and beliefs shift, there is an increasing number of non-church funerals being presided over by people like us. So, as we celebrate Dancing the Veil, I'd like to remember and give thanks to my friend whose death changed my perception and took away the creepiness out of the body as she celebrates her departure to the other realm 20 years ago, this All Saints' Day. So that's all from me. Thank you for listening. So now let me hand back to Jeannie.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you so much. Well, I'm a country girl at heart and a very keen environmentalist. And instead of a gravestone, I'd like to tell you about a funeral I took for a friend last week who's having a tree planted. She was actually buried in a beautiful woodland setting. And knowing she only had a very short while to live, Sue actually came to a Last Wishes workshop. So she was aware of the many choices available to her. And she chose this resting place in a beautiful woodland while she was still able to walk and make decisions. Her grave was dug by hand because there's no machinery allowed in the woodland. It's a completely sustainable area. Her family decorated her cardboard coffin with her children and her grandchildren all took part. They stuck photographs on and they laughed and cried as they did so. The children did drawings, they wrote prayers, poetry, and put on all sorts of, she was a very keen cyclist, and they put pictures of her on her bicycle. And we lined the coffin with fleece fleece from a mutual friend's flock of lovely Jacob sheep. They were very dearly loved sheep, and so it felt very appropriate. We took the fleece home, we washed it, we dried it, and snuggled her up in this lovely soft bed of fur. And then we sprinkled her with lavender and rose petals. Sue requested no bought flowers, only flowers from the garden, and people brought beautiful collections of autumn flowers, fruits, gourds from her allotment, all sorts of very natural bits and pieces, treasures from the hedgerows, and that was her wish. She preferred that donations be made to charity instead. And as the hearse drove into the entrance of the woodland, where her coffin was transferred on a handcart, we all followed in procession through the woodland. It probably was a good 10-minute walk to the place that she'd chosen. For the elderly and slightly lame, there was a Land Rover, but that was the only form of mechanism, as it were, allowed in the area. 30 friends and family stood in a circle around the grave, and having read out, delivered the very, very personal ceremony I'd written with the family's help, we all said the committal together, which was on a service sheet. And on the back of the order of service sheet, Sue asked especially to have her 10 top recycling tips printed. She didn't ever waste a thing. She was the most amazing young lady, and she loved to cook. And in fact, we cooked together on many, many, many occasions. And she loved herbs and any sort of flavourings, that particularly natural ones. So it seemed very appropriate. I handed around a basket of garden herbs, bay leaves, rosemary for remembrance. We found some mint, lots of lavender, and lots of autumn flowers. And people took a handful and cast them into her grave as they said their own final farewells. And then the family produced a cold bag, and there was tins of G&T and of cold lager and fruit juice for the drivers. And we all drank Sue's health, and we poured a canful, on her daughter and I actually together poured a canful for her. It was definitely her favourite. So Sue's resting place, bless her, in this beautiful natural setting, is a haven for wildlife, a peaceful place to sit and remember, and in spring will become a carpet of bluebells, beautiful, beautiful bluebells. The first time I went there, it was bluebell time, and I will never ever forget its beauty. And one of the very best things of all, because it is a place where people are buried, it's safe from developers. So that is quite a big deal in my book. So, yes, it was a very, very moving occasion, and she planned it all prior to at Last Wishes workshop. And so eventually her husband and daughter knew exactly what her choices were. And and the other thing I haven't told you, first of all, there was a church service, which I didn't go to because of the COVID thing, but they took her from her home. And it was this, in the workshop, I say, actually anything goes. There aren't many rules. People think it's a very, very strict, you can do this, but not that. But there's very, very few rules in actual fact when you look into it. And when it comes to transport, I said, well, really anything goes. So she took it literally. She wanted to be taken to church on a bicycle. And so this gave the family the most amazing challenge, and they did it. They put her coffin onto a little trailer on the back of her bicycle and her daughter and husband led the bicycle with the coffin behind on the trailer, and it was taken apparently into the church service like that, which took place obviously before the burial. So she did it her way, bless her heart. So so it really draws towards the end of our little session here, and heartfelt thanks for joining us. And for more information about Last Wishes and to view the rest of our programme, Dancing with the Veil, go to lastwishes.world and you'll find lots of very, very interesting information. There's so much going on from the 30th of October to the 4th of November. There will be a programme on hourly intervals throughout the weekend. So hope to see you again soon. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.